Hello, welcome to another video. So in this video, we're going to be talking about comprehension. So this is a passage that we have. It says, the lights in the office were still on long after everyone else had gone home. Sarah stared at the unfinished report on her desk while rubbing her temples, whatever. It's when you rub on your forehead and you just like rubbing. It's like close to the forehead, but not on the forehead, like just above your ear. There's a spot on there that's your temples. I don't know if you've noticed that, but sometimes when you're stressed or whatever, you just be rubbing, your temples. But anyway, a half-empty coffee cup sat beside her laptop. Then the question will say, what can you infer about Sarah's situation? Okay, so we need to ask ourselves, based on all this information, we can already see that Sarah is stressed. That is one of the things that we can see. She's stressed about the situation. But now, where in this passage does it say that she's stressed? Nowhere. There's nowhere in that passage where it's saying that she's stressed. But that does not mean that the answer isn't there. So today I'm going to show you how top students find hidden answers using a simple detective method. That's what we're going to look at in this video. So what I want to also highlight is the fact that many students believe that every answer is copied directly from a passage. I know some of you guys watching this video, you believe that if a question says this, it's somewhere in the passage. That's why sometimes you lose marks because now you can't see the answer that you're looking for in the passage. And that's so wrong. Okay. In reality, what actually is happening is the fact that answers are stated somewhere in the passage, but some answers are hidden. That's why sometimes you can't find the exact answer to copy from the passage because they're hidden. So that's what we need to have a look at, okay? So let's look at a little bit of a comparison. So the first thing that I want to explain to you guys is two different things. We have information question and we have inference questions, okay? Information question is when the passage says to us, so this is our passage. Oops, I'm trying to get that. Our passage says Sarah is 15 years old. Okay. The question is, how old is Sarah? It's directly there. She's 15 years old. Okay. That's the information question. Then we have inference question. So where we have the sentence or the passage that says Sarah rubbed her temples and stared at her unfinished report. Now, the question says, how was Sarah feeling? It's not written anywhere there. They don't say that Sarah is feeling tired or Sarah is feeling stressed or Sarah is exhausted, whatever it might be. It's not written there. So that's where now you need to think. So that's the difference between information question and inference question. You need to know the difference. Sometimes they'll ask you a direct question, which is where now we're using our information question, where the answer is directly there. And then sometimes they'll give you inference question where you have to think about your answer. So that's why most of you guys lose marks. You need to be able to understand that not all questions, not all the answers will be there in the passage. Sometimes it's just inference questions. So that's the two different differences that we have. So information questions require finding. Inference questions require thinking. And that's the difference between the two. You will always get information questions and inference questions when it comes to the exam. So you need to be able to know the difference out of the two. So now let's move on to something that I like to say, okay, is whenever you're trying to find an answer to an inference question, you need to find clues. Sometimes it will be clue, 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 and it will equal whatever it is. Sometimes you'll find two clues to get to your answer. So for example, okay, we're going to look at an example now, but I just want to think of another example. Let's say an example will say, it was 7 p.m. at night. Okay, well, let's say they say just 7 p.m. The sun was setting, sun setting. Then they say to you, is this day or night? That's two clues given. The first being the fact that it's 7 p.m. The second being that the sun was setting. Okay, so let's pretend the sun set at 7 p.m. that day. Then already you would be able to answer and say that was night. Okay, so they didn't say to you that it was night. You had to look for clues to be able to answer that question. So it's the same example with Sarah. Everyone has gone home. That was clue one. Clue two, she had an unfinished report. The third clue was that she was rubbing her temples. Okay, and then the fourth clue was the coffee cup. So what do these clues tell us? You should be able to see that Sarah is stressed, she's feeling a lot of pressure, and she's working late because everyone else had gone home. Everyone else had gone home. She still had an unfinished project. So, I mean, the fact that everyone else went home and you still staying behind, that means you still have something to catch up on. Okay? It's late. She's stressed. She's working late. She's working under pressure because maybe she has to finish the report. So then that is an inference question. So the question being, what do these clues tell us? We can already tell that Sarah is stressed, she has too much pressure, and she's working late. Okay, so we can already tell that the writer never says that Sarah is stressed, but good readers need to connect clues together. And I need you guys to be good readers. Okay, I need you to be able to read, find clues, and be able to answer questions. Don't always expect the answers to be in the passage. Then the next thing that we need to understand is whenever there's a sentence, you need to read all the sentences before answering your questions. Okay, so I know this is a simple thing that I'm saying right now, but I know most students they don't read. You don't read your passages. You read the questions and then you go to the passage and you start like what you call it, just trying to find the answer, just reading, but not even reading, but just like, you know, um, what's the word? Forgot the word now. But just scanning, yes, scanning through the passage to try and find your answers. You need to read. Then let's go look at another example when it comes to our inference questions. Okay, so we have a passage here that says Michael Michael glanced at the clock for the third time. His leg bounced rapidly beneath the desk while he repeatedly tapped his pen against the table. When the teacher finally called his name, he swallowed hard before standing up. Then the question says to us, what can be inferred about Michael's emotional state? So this is an inference question, we can already tell. Nowhere here do they say that Michael is having a breakdown. It's not written anyway. So we need to figure out now and find some clues. So I need you guys to think about it, read the passage, think what can be said about Michael's emotional state. So the first clue could be, let's stick to blue, glanced at the clock for the third time. So he glanced at the clock for the third time. So he's been looking at the clock. His leg bounced rapidly beneath the desk. He repeatedly tapped his pen against the table, and he swallowed hard before standing up. That's already 4 clues. So this already tells us that Michael is nervous. Clearly he's nervous. You only probably, do all those things quite a number of times if you're nervous. Could also be that he's anxious. So he's anxious about whatever the teacher, like the reason why the teacher's calling him. So that's his emotional state. That's what we figured out based on the clues that we just had. Okay, so you need to always break it down for yourself. Okay. So look at the clues. He checked the clock repeatedly. The bouncing leg, tapping the pen, swallowing hard. That just means he was nervous or he was anxious. Okay, so sometimes when writers or authors do this, what they're doing is they're often showing us emotions instead of telling emotions. So they won't necessarily say that Michael is happy, blah 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 blah. If maybe Michael was happy, they was going to say something like, Michael couldn't stop, looking at his phone, waiting for the time to hit so he can go home. I don't know, maybe play some Xbox or whatever the heck that he was excited about. Okay, that is then when they'll be showing that Michael is happy. So, like I'm saying, they won't always show us emotions, but they will always tell us emotions. So they'll tell us a few hints that will relate to someone's emotional state. And that is this example. Okay, so that is that. Then let's continue. So many mistakes that students make. So let's say, for example, the question was saying, how was Michael feeling? And then the student answers and say, Michael checked the clock. That is not that is not an answer, guys. Yes, he checked the clock, but then it does not say anything about how he was feeling. So you need to take this into account. If you are that student that does this, I need you to stop. You need to stop doing this. That is not how you answer comprehension. And I'm really hoping that the next time you have a comprehension test, you will do this. Okay, you will follow what I'm saying because that is not an answer. Michael was nervous. That was the correct answer. So whether Michael checked the clock, whether Michael was busy tapping the pen on his desk, whatever, that has nothing to do with how he's feeling. Yes, it has everything to do with how he's feeling, but they're not saying the actions behind it. They're actually looking for how he was feeling. And that is what you need to be able to do. Okay. So I've seen this and I've seen students do this, and I'm saying to you guys, please, you need to be able to find clues. I'm giving you all this information so that you can please stop doing this in the exams and improve marks. Comprehension is one of those things where you have to get the most marks. You can't lose out on marks on comprehension. There's no way. So this is one of the things that you need to look out for. Don't be lazy. Please, you need to read. Read your sentences, read whatever it is. Now you know there's inference questions. Now you know what that is. You need to apply that whenever you get to the next comprehension test. Then let's look at the different example. So the passage says, despite working 2 jobs, Mrs. Dlamini continued saving every spare rand she earned. She often skipped luxuries for herself so that her children could attend a better school. Then the question says to us, what does this passage suggest about Mrs. Dlamini's character? Character. So already she's working 2 jobs. That's hint number 1. She continued saving every spare rand she earned, skipped on luxuries for herself so that her children could attend a better school. So what does that tell us? Someone who will rather not do anything for themselves, but for someone else, that person is selfless, selfless. So that is one thing we can say about Mrs. Dlamini's character, is the fact that she's selfless. She has 2 working jobs. 2 jobs, meaning she's hardworking. So we can say that she's hardworking. And then what else? She continued saving every spare rand she earned. So that could be someone who's dedicated, because she's dedicated to making sure that she'll do whatever it takes so that her children could attend a better school. So that would be another one, dedicated. So this is how you identify and pick out answers when it comes from your passages if you're looking at clues. Then, next one. Plastic bottles floated along the riverbanks while litter covered the surrounding grass. The once clear water had become murky and lifeless. What message is the writer trying to convey? Okay, what message is the writer trying to convey? Sometimes they'll ask you, what is the writer trying to say? Or what is the writer saying in this paragraph? Or whatever it is. Okay, so plastic bottles floated along the river banks while litter covered surrounding grass. So that could be already like, a hint. And then once clear water had become murky and lifeless. So what is the writer trying to convey in this statement? We could say something like pollution harms the environment. So pollution is bad, it harms the environment. Pollution harms the environment. So that is something that probably the writer is trying to say. Okay. So what you need to understand is the writer never says that the pollution is bad. Nowhere in that statement says that pollution is bad, blah, blah, blah. No, the writer did not say that. The writer wants you to reach that conclusion. So based on this information, what the writer is sometimes doing is for the reader to be able to read a specific, conclusion, to reach a specific conclusion, sorry. So you need to be able to see that, okay, the writer said this, this, and that. So basically, what they're trying to say is pollution harms the environment. So you need to be able to identify that because it's not gonna say in the passage to say, hi, I'm the writer, and as the writer, I'm saying that this is bad and pollution is harming the environment. It's not gonna, that's not how it works. That's not gonna happen. You're never gonna see that. So you need to be able to identify what message the writer is trying to convey. Okay. So you take the evidence. From the evidence, you're able to make up what the message is about. And based on this, we can be able to see that the message is about the fact that pollution harms the environment because now the water becomes murky and lifeless. And now, there's plastic bottles floating along the riverbanks. So that's one thing that you need to also um, take into account. I'm hoping this is making sense, guys, because you need to be able to understand this. Then the next one. The classroom became silent as the teacher handed out the examination papers. Several learners stared at their desks while others took deep breaths. Yo, that feeling when the teacher's handing back the exam papers. It's hectic. It's hectic because you're just like, oh my gosh, how did I do? Did I do well? Did I fail? Yeah, it's one of those. And the question says, how were the learners probably feeling? How are the learners probably feeling? So some of the learners stayed at their desks while others took deep breaths. And we're talking about examination papers here. So you need to put 1 plus 1 and say, okay, this is a stressful moment. So probably they were feeling nervous and anxious because I mean, guys, who feels excited when they handing out exam papers after you've written and as you're about to see your results? If you feel happy, then something you're special. You're very special because hey, that feeling, you feel nervous or you feel anxious. That's what I would say in this case. So how are the learners probably feeling? They were probably feeling nervous and anxious. There's no way, like I'm saying, unless you're one of those one of a kind and you feel excited. But in a case like this, you'll probably feel nervous or anxious. Then let's look at some hacks that you guys need to remember. So you need to look for command words. So for example, explain, infer, suggest, describe, compare, right? Each of these require a different answer. Explain, you need to be able to be in detail. Infer, same thing. Suggest is giving your own opinion. Describing, you need to be as detailed as possible. Compare, you need to write two of them. Just like how we compared the information question and the inference questions. That's what it means when we have to compare. Okay. Each of them requires a different answer. If they say list, then you just put like bullet points or whatever. But you can't put bullet points when they say describe or explain. That's not going to work. Then hack number 2, you need to check mark allocation. If it's 1 mark, you can give a short answer. If it's 2 marks, you need to at least give 2 points. And if it's 3 marks, you need to develop your answer. So back your answer up. Okay, that's what you need to do. Please, guys, when it comes to this, if it's 2 marks and it says 2 points, don't write the same thing twice and expect to get the same mark. You can't say the pizza was very hot and then you say the pizza was warm. It's the same thing. How are you expecting 2 marks? You're gonna get 1 mark because it's the same thing. There's no way those are two different things. It's the same thing. So you need to be able to make sure that those points are different. Hack number 3, always support your inference with evidence. So Sarah was stressed. Don't leave it like that. Say Sarah was stressed because she was working late and had not completed her report. Okay, markers love evidence. So yes, the students are anxious when it comes to this example. The students are anxious or the students are nervous, but you need to say that the students are anxious because they stared at their desks and some took deep breaths. Then that is, backing up your answer or supporting your inference with some evidence. So that's what I mean when we say, evidence. Okay. So these are the things that I wanted you guys to know. Okay, so this is very important. Remember, comprehension isn't about copying answers from the passage. That's not what it's about. It's about uncovering hidden meaning. That's when now the inference comes into place. Okay, so every time you read a comprehension, become a detective. Look for clues and evidence and all those things to be able to figure out your answers. Okay, so that is it. That is it from my side. Um, yeah, I hope this video made sense. I hope, there was a lot of takeaways from this, and yeah, takeaways, not takeaways like McDonald's, takeaways like I hope you took away something interesting from this video, things that you're going to make use of. And yeah, also, if you're one of those students who get excited when teachers are handing out papers, please tell us because, yay, we want to know if, there's people like that. And yeah, I hope this video made sense, guys. And don't forget to please like this video. And if you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a study tip or a video like this one. Till next time, bye.